Israel is mentioned 2,540 times in the Bible. Israel is a significant place on planet Earth. It is written, "For you are a set-apart people to Yahweh, your Elohim." Yahweh has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. For Yahweh has chosen Zion.
Well, shalom, everyone. Hallelujah. Welcome to this week's Israel update. My name is James O'Hare, and this is my lovely bride, AviGayle.
Shalom Aleichem, everybody. It's exciting, and we're very thankful to be here with you for this week's Israel update. There's some exciting and encouraging news, and there's also some very sobering news for us to continue to pray for Israel, for the children of Israel, the nation of Israel, and the land of Israel. Because there's just so much going on in the world. And so we're here to bring you a few little events, and we're going to try to be concise and direct with it. It's a wake up. Again, we always say this, but it continues to escalate.
Again, we've read this before, and you've read this many times, AviGayle, is Psalm 83. I just want to read just a little bit of it, just to as it's so important, as the introduction that you just heard mentioned, that Israel is mentioned over 2,500 times in the scriptures, and Jerusalem's mentioned over 800 times in the scriptures. And so it's very, very important, the land, the people, the plan of him, the plan of Elohim. And it says in verse 1, "O Elohim, do not remain silent, do not be speechless, and do not be still, O El. For look, your enemies make an uproar, and those hating you have lifted up their head. They craftily plot against your people and conspire against your treasured ones. They have said, Come, let us wipe them out as a nation, and let the name of Israel be remembered no more." It's a great chapter in the Bible, but it's a very sobering chapter in the Bible
It's a
because
prayer.
it's a prayer.
Yes.
And we see so much coming against our Jewish brethren, and even from the Christian side and the Muslim side and all the different sides, the pressures that are coming against them, and the hatred and the vitriol that is taking place against our brothers and sisters, Yehuda. And you actually made an excellent point, AviGayle, earlier when we were talking. Um, who was Yeshua?
Yes. Yeshua is he's a Shemite.
Yeah.
And every time we hear about anti-Semitism, it's people that are coming against not only Jewish people from the Shem, from one of sons and one of Noah's sons, Shem, but also it's Yehuda, and it's also the Hebrew people. It's all of us. Yeah, it's a statement against Hebrews.
Exactly. And so if we have any kind of anti-Semitism tendencies, or we just look the other way when we see some outrageous anti-Semitic hate speech, it's like we're allowing our Messiah to be thrown under the bus, if you will. And I
As
know
well as all of our brothers and sisters.
as well as all of our brothers and sisters.
And it was shocking to me. I mean, that 2% of the population
here in
America are Hebrews, are Shemites. And there's just been a horrible anti-Semitic, I hate to say movement, but it's been a voice. There's been an anti-Semitic voice that has risen, and it's being addressed on the media, and it's being addressed, and I appreciate the fact that it's being brought out in the media. But I think that there needs to be more understanding about exactly what this voice is, this spirit of darkness that has one agenda, and it's always the agenda of darkness, and that is to destroy life.
Exactly, exactly. Um, there's a woman that wrote an article, and this is one of the things that we wanted to talk about because it's so pertinent today. Pamela Geller. She's a good Christian woman who's been persecuted greatly for standing up, for speaking out in support of Jewish brethren and coming up against Islam. And Islam has really, you know, put a lot of threats onto her life, but she would not back down. And this comes from the Geller Report, Geller report, Geller Report, and it's on the World Council of Churches that have trained 1,800 anti-Jewish activists. If you ever heard of the World Council of Churches, it was a group that was formed around 1948. Interesting, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
It
Not a
it
coincidence.
was tending to build steam from the late 1800s into the 1900s, but officially became the World Council of Churches in 1948, right around the same time that Israel became a nation. And right from the get-go, they were anti-Semitic right off the bat. A lot of them, because the churches that were involved were a lot of the Eastern Orthodox churches, the Russian Orthodox, the Greek, all the different orthodoxies that were here, and I don't have them right in front of me, but a lot that had to do with coming up against Judah, and so even in the a lot of them, have that we found out through the history and through digging and through the somewhat openness. Well, when the Soviet Union fell and the walls fell down there and became Russia, so there was a little bit more openness, although it's getting tighter again. But there's been evidence collaborating that a lot of these church groups that were part of the World Council of Churches were part of the KGB or being influenced by the KGB directly. And so there was a lot of anti Semitism that came out of that. And their attitudes towards Israel. It says and this is from a Wikipedia article, the World Council of Churches has been described as taking an adversarial position toward the state of Israel. It is also claimed the council has focused particularly on activities and publications citing Israel in comparison with other human rights issues, because the WCC never opposed or had any official comments on the destruction of Jewish religious sites in the Middle East, but has constantly complained about Israel's alleged crimes toward Christian sites in Israel. And if you know anything about Israel, they take the utmost care to protect all the religious sites, both Christian, Jewish, and Muslim sites. Um, I mean, think about it. I mean, think about the Iraq War and with Afghanistan too. The Taliban, what did they do? They desecrated um, Buddhist religion and other kinds of religions, and anything that they would do, they would come up against, and just destroy historical things. Even in the Iraqi um, museum, they came in and ransacked that to destroy any evidence of ancient history. So, going back to the World Council of Churches, they trained 1,800 anti-Jewish um, activists that would go. They actually spent. I mean, they spent a long time in Israel, but they spent a 10-day program learning how to, you know, take cameras. They are constantly um, stalking the IDF, the border, anything they can do just to find out if, you know, if anything is happening, and if one little thing goes on, they magnify it greatly. So it's just, you see in this kind of anti-Semitism rise up within the state of Israel, you know, and you know, it's sad. I mean, it really is sad.
And it boils down to Torahlessness. It boils down to darkness. And you know, just to give a little bit of a background, this is a very small outline of what it means to be a Shemite. Okay, because this comes from an article that it's Was Abraham a Jew, and it's by Wayne Blank. And so it breaks down some of it in the beginning, but I just want to kind of like focus on so how do all these designations relate to the people involved? In other words, is Abraham a Jew? And then it talks about the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the sons of Shem, you know, and it goes to the genealogy of all that. And you can look at First Chronicles 1, 4, and 17 through 28. So from two other people, this is what I found to be very interesting, because this is a direct attack on us.
Hmm.
You know, just remember this. This is a direct attack on us, because a lot of the 2% that they're categorizing as Jewish people or Shemites, they're not including people who are, number one, following Yeshua, the Messiah, who is a Shemite. He's Judah. They're not counting the Messianics, who have crossed over, and the word crossed over means Hebrew. So let's just kind of focus on who this attack is on, because I believe if you look in the mirror, you're going to find out it's an attack on you too.
That's right.
From two other people come two other very well known identities: the Israelites. Let that Selah. The Israelites, okay, and the Israelites are the descendants of Yitzhak, the son of Yaakov, whose name was changed to Israel, who Elohim renamed Israel, and from Yaakov's sons, Judah, Yehuda, come the term Jew and Judah. So, how do all these designations relate to the people involved? Number one, the term Shemite is derived from Noah's son Shem. So let that Selah. The term Hebrew is derived from Shem's descendant Eber, and Eber was a Shemite and the first Hebrew, but not an Israelite or a Jew, because neither existed yet. Now, we have to kind of understand again, the word Hebrew means crossed over. So the Hebrews who came out of Mitzrayim, who came out of chaos, and crossed over into the wilderness, they were called Hebrews because they crossed over. So if you're going to kind of consolidate that, anyone that has come out of darkness into his marvelous light and is living to obey the Torah, you're a Hebrew.
That's right.
So then Abraham was Eber's descendant. Abraham was a Shemite and a Hebrew. So again, Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham, and I am one of them, and so are you. So let's just praise the Lord. Amen. So I mean, it's this. So he was a Shemite and a Hebrew, but not. This is what they say, not an Israelite or a Jew, because neither existed yet. Now, again, Judah came from Yitzhak. I mean, Yaakov. He's one of the sons of Yaakov, who came from Yaakov and Leah. So then Isaac was Abraham's son, and Isaac was a Shemite and a Hebrew, but not an Israelite or a Jew because neither existed yet. Now, the bottom line is this, okay? Judah is a tribe. Judah is a tribe. It's one of the 12 tribes. It's the son again of Yaakov and Leah. Now, Yaakov, who Elohim renamed Israel, was Yitzhak's son, and Yaakov was a Shemite and a Hebrew, but not a Jew because Jews originated with the son of Judah. And the first Israelites were the children of Yaakov, whose name was changed to Israel. So you can see that this comprises a lot of people. There's a lot of people that can kind of fall into this label, if you will, this category. Yehuda was one of Yaakov's 12 sons, and the children of Yaakov and the tribes of Israel. Yehuda, Judah, was a Shemite, a Hebrew, and an Israelite. The first Jews were the children of Judah. The descendants of the other 11 were of Jacob's sons are not Jews, but were themselves named accordingly. And they, like the Levites, Benjamin, which is a Benjaminite, but they were all the children of Israel. They still were all the children of Israel. So when this kind of a statement comes up as far as anti-Semitism, it's really anti-Hebrew, anti-Israel. It's really an attack on Israel. It's attack on the children of Israel. And a vitally important fact in understanding Bible prophecy.
Yes.
This is prophetic. This is from the very beginning. If you remember when Yaakov and Esau were in the womb of Rivka, and there was something going on in the womb. And she knew that it was something very strange. It wasn't a normal pregnancy. She just sensed that there was something more going on than just babies moving around. And Yahweh spoke to her and says, yeah, there is something very strong going on. It's two nations that are at war. There's two nations. They're at war with each other. And so let that Selah. So when this ugly head of anti-Semitism rises up, it's a nation that's rising up against Israel, rising up against the Hebrews, rising up against the children of Israel. And so when we look at it, all of the Hebrews, but are all the Hebrews, but only the descendants of Yehuda are Jews. So remember that. But many prophecies apply specifically to the Jewish people of today, while other prophecies apply specifically to the descendants of the so-called lost tribes of Israel, the chosen people. So we don't have the time to go into all of it, but just to let you know, this anti-Semitism has an effect on us as children of Israel, as those who believe in the word of God, believe in the Bible, believe that we are to, that we have crossed over, that we are Hebrews. When we read the children of Israel in the Bible, we say that would be me. I am a child of Israel. I am part of that. Whether you're the nation of Israel or whether you are the house of Israel, we are akkad, we are one with the Elohim of Israel, the God of Israel, if you will. So this anti-Semitism, just every time I see it, I say, do people realize who the attack is on? Yes, I feel terrible. I grieve for those who are brothers Judah, who are very obviously Judah. They have been for thousands of years. They haven't hidden it by their apparel, by their outer. But those of us who have crossed over, we also are becoming more and more known to the public. We
Exactly.
don't engage in the pagan holidays, if you will. I don't even like to call them holidays, but we also observe and guard Shabbat, sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. We observe and guard the feasts. We're on this journey. So we are also part of that population.
That's right.
And so it's really, we need to, number one, we need to pray. We need to thank the Father that He has a hedge of protection around us and that He is Yahweh Zavaot, mighty in battle against that anti-Semitic spirit of darkness, that principality and power and ruler of darkness that is trying to bully, talk about bullying. That every time you hear it, but you know what I hear and what I see? I don't see any kind of fear and anxiety in Judah. They're a good big brother. I don't see them running under places and hiding from it. They still are who they are, and we still are who we are. But we need to become stronger, James. We need to become more and more um, voices, against that darkness and against that anti-Semitic spirit that is carrying such a voice. Because the truth is, even when the world talks about this anti-Semitic spirit, they really don't even know what they're talking about. They don't understand what they're talking about. They're ignorant to it. Not too many people understand exactly who the Semites are and what our purpose is. We're the light unto the nations.
We are. We are. It was interesting, and we'll get more into this a little bit. But a few years ago, we had Rabbi Moshe and his wife Leah and their son Ephraim Goldsmith here in the Boston area, and we brought them around, and
We hosted them.
we hosted them for a week. And brought them to different venues so they get the message out about what was going on in Israel and what was going on in Itima. And we were taking them out to a very small area now. It used to be a little larger, but we call it Little Israel because it's the Jewish section of one of the towns right near Boston. And it's highly Jewish population is in there, and it has like 3 or 4 kosher restaurants, an Israeli bookstore where a lot of wonderful materials in there and things. But we were taking them out to a Chinese food
Kosher.
kosher. It was the first time we've ever
Owned by Jewish people.
yeah, and it was just it was phenomenal. But as we were getting out of the car, because we parked and we were getting out of the car, and Rabbi Moshe had his keeper on, and actually I had one on, and we had the tassels and whatnot, and as we were getting out of the car, these young kids rode by in a car. It was during the warmer months, and their windows were down, and they just screamed out a horrible, horrible racial hate speech slur to us. And Moishe was so apologetic to me. I'm like, why are you apologizing? He said, I'm so sorry you had to experience that. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not. It gave me a deeper appreciation of what our Jewish brethren go through every day, both here in the States and in Israel and all over the world. So, I mean, we have a lot to do. We have a lot to identify and educate people and speak out.
And soon after that event that took place, and he was very apologetic, not too long, within minutes, actually, he knew it was prayer time. And so he had to find a place where he could pray. And so he went down the street and he just started praying. He was praying, and that to me witnessed to me too. I said, you know, these people are, number one, they have tender hearts toward the Torah, tender hearts towards the creator of heaven and earth.
Amen.
And they are such an example to us. They are really an example to us of doing what is right in the eyes of the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, the King. And so, but again, what James just said is they didn't cower. They didn't hide themselves. They didn't say, quick, get inside the car. No, we stood out there. We stood out there. We're like, because, and the thing is, we didn't stand out there looking arrogant.
No.
We didn't stand out there looking like another bully, but we stood. And I believe that this message, when the anti-Semitic spirit, the anti-Semitic voice rises up, we continue to press on. We continue to do what is right in the eyes of the creator of heaven and earth, because he's with us.
That's
He's
right.
with us through this. And I'm talking to me, because when I hear it, it really does send off an alarm within me that says, there is an enemy. We know there's an enemy. But when that enemy really looks you in the face and actually has a face, and we can put lots of names to some of the faces of that anti-Semitic language, that anti-Semitic uh, voice, if you will, but we won't, because we want to put a face to the King. We want to be that face that says, we trust in the Most High. We know that he's watching over us.
I want to just read something, because when you were talking, you just made me think of something. Because um, there's a wonderful memorial, Holocaust memorial, down in Boston, that was well overdue, and it's just done in such a totally respectful way. You have 6 square towers for the 6 um, concentration camps, the major concentration camps that killed um, 6 million Jews during World War II. And then toward the end, they post this poem by Martin Niemöller, um, Martin Niemöller, and it says, "First they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." I mean, just Selah on that for a moment. That is such a powerful, powerful statement. We're in this together. We're all in this together. Our brothers Judah, Ephraim, Yehuda, we're in this together. And though we may not see eye to eye on everything, we need to be respectful and stand up for our brothers and sisters, um, our older brothers and sisters, if you will. And remember the prodigal son. I mean, we were like that prodigal son that went out and went into the muck and the mire. I mean, we were those 10 nations, those 10 tribes that were assimilated into the nations, and got so fixated on the world that we looked like the world, we smelled like the world, we acted like the world, we talked like the world, we had mannerisms of the world. But yet the Father is wooing us back. He's grabbing us, he's whistling for us, he's singing over us with joy, he's bringing us back, he's gathering all of us, both Yehuda and Ephraim, back
Yes.
to him. And don't you want to be part of that? I mean, don't you want to be part of that that plan that the Father has? and that we can speak up for one another, that we can defend one another, that we can fight with one another if we need to, not with, I mean, side by side with one another against the enemies, uh, and 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 do the things that the Father wants us to do, to be in unity with one another. Yeshua did say that they will know that you are my disciples. Yeshua said this by what? Your love for one another.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about.
Yes, and so just to kind of bring this to an understanding of who a Semite is when they say anti-Semitism. Okay, anti-Semitism is from the tribe of Judah. It's from the Hebrews, which would mean it's Abraham and his seed, the father Abraham and his seed. It's from Yaakov, whose name was changed to Israel, and which would mean that all of his children would be considered a Semite, because the bottom line is there was one lawgiver, and there's one creator of heaven and earth, and there's one word that's forever settled in heaven. And so a fact finder is this, and just let this silar and talk about this around your table with your family. Talk about this to your neighbor or the people you work with. Of what Israelite tribe was Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, descended? Ask. And then look in the book of Hebrews. Look in the book of Hebrews. And Hebrews 7:14 says, "For it is perfectly clear that our master arose from Yehuda, a tribe about which Moshe never spoke of concerning priesthood. And this is clearly still, if another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become, not according to the Torah of fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life. For he does witness, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." So the bottom line is we're talking about the first lawgiver,
Yes.
Yeshua HaMashiach. We're talking about that he was descended from Yehuda, a Shemite. So this is all, this anti-Semitism is pointed against us. It's pointed against us. We're all part of that. We're all part of that spiritual attack. And so we need to, number one, pray. We need to pray for one another. We need to pray for Yehuda. We need to pray for all of our brothers and sisters from the tribe of Judah, all of our Hebrew brothers and sisters, all of even those who believe in Yeshua as their Messiah. They may not have crossed over and become Hebrew yet, crossed over into obeying what the word says, but they're still connected with a Shemite, Yeshua, who they call Lord. So it's something. It's an attack on the Creator of heaven and earth. And rest assured of this: nobody gets away with anything.
That's right.
There is a judge, and I'm convinced that life is a trial. It's a trial. Our life is being in the courts of the Most High, and we need to make sure our hearts are tender to what His heart is tender to,
Amen.
and that our hearts are toward what He has called us to listen and obey, so that we stay in His court,
Amen.
that we stay in His house, and that we have His protection, and we have His wisdom, and that we also know the function that we have when this anti-Semitic spirit is attacking, because we can put up the shield of faith against it. Because remember,
Hmm.
our father Abraham, he was also a Shemite. He was a Hebrew. So we're all connected. We're connected. We're in good company.
We are connected.
And we're in good company, even though those ugly heads, that ugly voice raises up. And it gets me angry. I have to say, I get very upset and angry over it, but I also have to put it into perspective, and I have to put it into the right focus
Mm.
of, it's against the creator of heaven and earth. I mean, that's the attack. It's against the creator of heaven and earth, his plan, his people, his nation, his land. So
Amen.
it's not I would not want to be fighting against the creator of heaven
No,
and earth.
no. I mean that's
Um,
that's the good news, that he is in control, and it does nothing surprises him. Nothing surprises our Yah. Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, really. Um, just to give you a heads up on what's been happening here in the states. We've had an election in 2018, and the Congress has now turned hands into the Democratic control, and there's been two Muslim representatives that have been elected. There was one before, Ellison, who's now I guess, the Attorney General, even though he had some really tough allegations of abuse to a woman, but yet he survives that. So, it's interesting. That's a whole nother story. But here you have two Muslim women, and one of them is actually a so-called, she calls herself a Palestinian. So she has her allegiances to what she would call Palestine, and that's Representative Rashida Tlaib. Um, and it's interesting because I mean, one of her victory speech, basically, I mean, she had a gathering of so-called friends, close friends. Somebody taped it. I have no idea, but the tape got out, and she just said an expletive against President Trump, and about impeaching everybody. It's like, okay, I don't even think anybody really knows what that really means. Um, but it's such a fun word to say,
Oh.
so everyone kind of, goes on that. And, President Trump sneezes and they say, oh, we need to impeach him for that. It's just, uh, there's just,
It's a spiritual
it's a
attack.
spiritual attack. And so we're up against that. So we're up against a couple of Muslims in the thing, and this Rashida Tlaib was actually, and still may. I mean, I doubt very much that Pelosi will um, stop her from doing this. But there's a representative from Texas, Brian Babin, that pushed on Thursday to block the freshman representative Rashida Tlaib, the first Palestinian American in Congress, which that notice it's a Democrat too, but that's another story. From leading an official delegation to the West Bank, and that's a misnomer. West Bank, that was something that the world kind of put on. That's Judea and Samaria. That's biblical Israel.
Everything, all these names, I mean, they're so false. They're fake. They don't even exist. Where's the king of Palestine? Where's the coin of Palestine?
There is none.
Oh, so is there really a
There's never been a
Palestinian
land of Palestine. There's never been
people?
a people of Palestine.
And there's never, and the West Bank is another,
and it was actually
false
it
name.
was actually a joke, in a sense. I mean, tongue in cheek joke, but take all the Jews out of that area anyway. That was his excuse, but that was the Emperor Hadrian of the Roman Empire in 135 AD. So he kicked them out, and he renamed the area Syria Palestria, something like that. I'm not sure if I said that right. Latin, which then ended up, for basically the past 2,000 years, people call that area Palestine. But if you look at a map of Palestine in the early 1900s. Because a lot of people called it that. Not right, but they called it that. If you look at the state of Palestine, or the area of Palestine, not the state, but the area, what they call Palestine, it included all of Jordan. So, is there a Palestinian state? Well, if you want to call something a Palestinian state, then Jordan would be that Palestinian state. So, if you want to have a land of Palestine, have it in Jordan. And that's where most of them came from anyway. So anyway, that's just another story on that. But I just thought that was interesting that this Texan congressman is trying to push and block this Palestinian American congresswoman from leading a delegation to the West Bank. So that's that. Any comments on that?
No, I just, I hear all this and I see all this that's going on, and I just say it's just, it's more distractions, and it's like people who are trying to take advantage of a nation such as United States of America. They're trying to use it, as a platform. And again, it's an attack.
Mm,
It's an attack on truth. It's an attack on righteousness, and it's just constantly trying to deceive deceive the public. And if you don't do your due diligence and you don't seek things out, and you don't read the word, and really, find out what's really happening and what we are supposed to be doing, all of us can get duped and dragged into it, and it's not an encouraging way to live your life. It's that no wonder people go to fantasy. When they start seeing these things happening, they escape to
it's
fantasy.
true.
They're
It is very true.
that's why Disneyland and whatever, they make a lot of money, and they just raised how much families are going to have to spend this year, because they know that families are escaping to fantasy. They'd rather be in fantasy than have to deal with reality. And the truth of the matter is, there's nothing more comforting than the reality of prophecy, the reality of God's word.
Amen.
And so on a high
Well,
note.
actually, can I
Oh,
just I just
oh
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
mention one thing. I mean, have you heard about the Women's March?
Yes.
That's
Yes, I
coming
have.
coming up. Um, Let me see if I can, because
Anti-Semitism again.
again, it's well, what happened was the woman who is the president, or the co-president, I should say, of the Women's March that started 2 years ago, with the inauguration of President Trump. Um, and then they went last year, and now they're doing it this year. But this woman who's the president, Tamika Mallory, is basically an anti-Semite, and she's kind of doing it in pretty, you know, words, and trying to dance a lot. But she's been, pictured with Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, who refers to our Jewish brethren as termites, um, and and so she was on the View, which everyone watches the View, don't they?
No.
Not okay, but so we gets the highlights and once in a while on certain things, and I would never watch that show. But anyway, and Megan McCain grilled Mallory
She stood her ground.
she stood her ground. I was actually very
She
proud
stood
of.
up, and that's
I was very
I
proud of her.
applaud her for that.
And she says, and she was, asking, do you condemn the words of Farrakhan? And then what she said, because this is what she said on social media. And I don't know when Tamika Mallory said this, but her remarks went on social media. She said, "The powerful Jews are my enemy." Woo. Okay. Now that's an interesting thing. So when she was on the View, Megan confronted her and said, "Do you condemn these words? Do you do you condemn them? And she says, as I said, I don't agree with many of Minister Farrakhan's statements. Mallory said, do you condemn them? McCain said, I don't agree with these statements at the end of the day. So she doesn't, but what about during the day? Oh, that's another story. So Megan McCain said, you won't condemn it. And she was shaking her head when she said, you won't condemn it. And she didn't. She danced, she danced, she danced. Now, what's happening, which is probably a good thing, is there was going to be multiple women's marches across this country. Chicago was going to probably be the biggest one. That might still be going on. I don't know, but I know there's a lot of organizations that pulled out of supporting this because she won't. The leadership is very anti-Semitic. And even the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, pulled their support from this because they won't denounce the statements by Farrakhan, and so a lot of them all over the country are canceling.
So it sounds like the mighty Elohim of Israel has intervened.
But you see what happens, though, is that there was a small remnant, a small number. I mean, because in America, and this is what this Jewish woman said, and I would have to understand that this is probably true. Only 2% of the population are Jewish. When they say Jewish, Judaism and people who would identify themselves as Jews in this country, not including people like yourself that didn't grow up Jewish but has Jewish blood in you, and there's many others that do, but that wouldn't be part of the 2%. But she stood up and she said, I support a lot of the things that the Women March does. That's what she was saying. But I cannot feel good about going to something like this that people just hate me. That's what, and speak against my people. So she stood up, and a lot of others stood up, and her voices were heard. So the numbers don't have to be huge. We just have to stand up
and speak. Do not be silent for Zion's sake.
Yes.
And so
so what's the in the final seconds, because
this is great as far as that's good news. I mean, there's always hope, and there are those voices that will speak up. And so this happened on January 13th, and it's from the Associated Press, and it said Netanyahu on Sunday confirmed that the IDF nailed hundreds of Iranian and Hezbollah targets in Syria, in addition to discovering a sixth and final tunnel dug by Hezbollah terrorists. Wow, hallelujah.
That's awesome.
And it said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday confirmed it, that Israel has struck hundreds of Iranian and Hezbollah targets in Syria, including a weapons facility in a weekend airstrike, as the military announced the discovery of a sixth and final tunnel dug by the Lebanese terror group for cross-border attacks. And speaking to an IDF in the Galilee, and I have to say this, near the Lebanese border, Netanyahu commented, in the past 48 hours, Israel attacked in Iran, 48 hours, mind you, okay? So the Yahweh Zavaot, Yahweh strong and mighty, Yahweh mighty in battle, is with Israel, and attacked an Iranian weapons warehouse at the international airport in Damascus. This event, this reflects our consistent policy and strong determination to prevent Iran from entrenching itself militarily in Syria. If necessary, we will step up these attacks. Hallelujah. So he also added, at the same time, the IDF has exposed the sixth tunnel, the largest of all, that crossed into Israel territory. This brings Operation Northern Shield, hallelujah, to a successful close. We will continue to monitor all activity by Hezbollah and by Iran and its proxies. We will do whatever is necessary to ensure, now hear this, the security of Israel. Now that's coming from Benjamin Netanyahu.
I love that.
We will do what's ever necessary to secure Israel. The security of Israel is prime in Israel. You know, the IDF serve automatically. They serve. It's like it's part of the whole lifestyle of living in Israel. You serve to defend the nation. And we, as the nation of Israel, we, as the children of Israel, we, of the people of Israel, need to have that same attitude, James,
Amen. Amen.
to
Amen.
defend, to serve, you know, however we can do it, to be that voice that informs, that voice that fans the flame of courage and conviction, that fans the flame of wisdom, to know that you have a function.
Amen.
We all have a function
We do. We do.
because Israel is the Father's property, and it's the place where our bridegroom, our Messiah, is going to return.
Yes. I want to show you a quick map. Let's see if I can do this quickly. If you can see that, I know it's probably a little small, so I apologize. But if you can see all the green there, that's all Arab-run states. And then you see that little teeny red thing in there. Can you see where my pointer is? You can probably see that. That's Israel. You can see it. It says Israel right there. There's the Mediterranean Sea. And you have all this Arab nations surrounding you, hating you, and wanting you tossed into this little blue puddle we call the Mediterranean Sea. But yet, this little nation, and you see Syria, I mean, you could probably put 5 Israels, the size of it is right now, into Syria, maybe even more, 6 maybe, into Syria. And that is just so important to understand the plight that our Jewish brethren are in. So
But the mighty Elohim of Israel.
exactly.
But the mighty Yahweh Zavaot.
Yes.
Because he is watching over Israel.
Yes.
He's watching over that land. He neither slumbers nor sleeps. And
That's right.
we just heard it, what took place here. And we, you know, we see the strength, and it's supernatural strength.
That's right.
It's not by power nor by might, but by what? His
The
spirit,
Spirit.
says Yahweh.
That sounds like a song. I just wanted to share one more. It's a small one, but this is the biblical borders of Israel. You see where Israel is? This little teeny slip right there. What is today's modern Israel right there? Jordan right next to it. But you see the Nile River here going all the way across Saudi Arabia, half of Iraq, 2/3 of Syria, and part of Turkey is the borders of Israel. And so that is exciting because that's going to happen. You talk about the book of Revelation, and you talk about that 1,500 mile or 1,500 square. Well, that's going to be the nation of Israel, where the Messiah is going to return to, where the Mount of Olives split in two, and he is going to rule and reign from Jerusalem for eternity, and we are going to be with him forever and ever and ever. So that's important.
Yes.
We got just a minute or two left.
Okay, I just want to say this one thing, that the number one, we have to have compassion and kindness towards one another, and to be obedient towards the will and the plan and the commands of the Most High. And remember that Rabbi Yeshua sent his disciples out on a mission to proclaim the kingdom of heaven in the villages of Galilee. When the apostles returned, they gave an account to him of all that they had done. Okay. The master hoped for some time alone with the disciples, taking them with him, he withdrew by himself to a city called Bethsaida. And the word of their presence in Bethsaida spread quickly. The crowds were aware of this and followed him, and welcoming them, he began to speak to them about the kingdom of Elohim and curing those who had need of healing.
Amen.
So the bottom line is this: let our conversation be about the king and his kingdom.
Yes.
Let our conversation be about the mighty Elohim of Israel. Let our conversation be that we serve a living Elohim, and he's with us. He'll never leave us nor forsake us, and he neither slumbers nor sleeps. He watches over Israel. He is guarding Israel. He is taking care of those in need. So every time we see that, and I'm talking to me about this evil voice that tries to raise its ugly head against Israel, against the children of Israel, the nation of Israel, the land of Israel, there's a mighty Elohim. He's watching
Hallelujah.
over us. Hallelujah.
All right, we gotta run. Thank you so much for listening to the Israel update and getting our perspective on some of the things that are going on here. And we just are so appreciative of you. Leave any comments that you may have for us. Uh, Hit the share button by all means. Subscribe to the Messianic Lamb Video Network YouTube channel by just hitting that subscribe button. And also there's a little bell up there that you can hit that you can be alerted to all the different things that are happening here on Lamb Video Network. So we appreciate you being here, and we will see you again next week on the Israel Update.
Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom, shalom.